Welcome to Harvey Mudd on the Road Policy and Government panel hosted by the Office of Career Services. My name is Leslie.
And my name is Jose.
We are practicum students at OCS. We hope you and your loved ones are safe and healthy during these times. Today we have three panelists, one from the United States Senate, Senator Ron Wyden, one representative from the U.S. Department of State, and one representative from the Niskanen Center. We also have our moderator, Liam, who will be an alum of HFC in 2023.
Hi, everyone. My name is Liam. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will be your moderator. Let's have each of our panelists introduce themselves with their name, the college they attended, your current company, and your position at that company. Miss Allison Hutchings, would you like to go first?
Sure. So my name is Allison. I graduated from Harvey Mudd in 2007 from the engineering department and worked in aerospace for a while. But right now I work and I'm a senior technologist for Senator Ron Wyden, who is a Democrat from Oregon. And so I do tech policy for him.
Excellent. And Mr. Jason Vorderstrasse?
Hi, my name is Jason Vorderstrasse, and I'm the diplomat in residence, basically the recruiter for the U.S. Department of State, covering Southern California, Hawaii, Nevada, American Samoa, Guam, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. And I am not an alumnus of Harvey Mudd, but I did go to Pomona College where I studied international relations.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Mr. Joseph Mikett?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Joseph Mikett. I'm a Harvey Mudd alum from 2006. I was a math major. I now work at the Niskanen Center, which is a public policy research and advocacy organization located in Washington, D.C., where I direct our program on climate policy.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Welcome to all our panelists. And our first question for you today is, how did you get involved in government and public policy? And even though Ms. Hutchings and Mr. Majkut, you were primarily geared towards the STEM fields, what drew you towards public policy and government policy? And we can just, go around if anyone would like to go first.
Joe, you should go first.
Yeah, sure. So I've been out of Mudd for some years now. I've been in public policy for about 5 or 6 years. But before I started in public policy, I was a scientific researcher. I did a PhD in chemical oceanography, atmosphere and ocean science in the Atmosphere and Ocean Science Department. And a lot of my scientific research had a lot of implications for public policy. And as I was finishing my degree, I was looking for jobs and next steps. And I ended up applying for and winning a fellowship through the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which allowed me to work on Capitol Hill for a senator for a year, or I ended up being in there for a little more than a year, as a advisor, staffer, and I found that I really enjoyed this kind of work and had an aptitude for it, and I've been in it since.
I'll follow on because I have a similar path. So I worked in aerospace actually for 10 years though. And the difference is my job in aerospace was very fun and absolutely not related to what I do now, other than the skills I learned about how to talk to people and how to learn things absolutely are applicable. But so I worked on the next Mars rover and space launch vehicles and things, and that was lots of fun. But in about 2017, I started thinking about what else I wanted to do, and I ended up applying for a different fellowship program on the Hill, so one called Tech Congress, and it's modeled after AAAS, but its goal is very specifically to bring technologists to the Hill, so focusing on computer scientists and engineers, but both programs interact a lot. And so I got that in 2019, and I came to the office of a senator from Hawaii for the fellowship, and then I got a full-time job on the Hill. So that's my pivot to policy.
All right, I'll wrap it up, I guess, for this first round of questions. I worked in the admissions office when I was at Pomona College, and planned to stay in admissions basically as my career path. And I did do that immediately after graduating. I went and worked at a university in the San Francisco Bay Area in the admissions office there and did a lot of work on international education. But my second day on the job, they told me that I could get a free graduate degree, that was one of the benefits of working there. And so I decided to get a law degree because it was mostly either law or business as their graduate degrees. And I figured I might as well get a free law degree and I could use that in admissions work too. But by the time I was done, I thought, well, maybe I should actually use it. And I'd done an internship at a court by that point, and thought, maybe I should try for something in government. And it just so happened that the Department of Labor was having a big hiring of attorneys then. And so that's where I ended up working first. And I was there for about 5 years. And then I switched over to the Department of State.
Excellent. And can you talk a little bit about like what time in your career or your education you felt that you knew you wanted to go into government, and how did that change the trajectory of your education or career path?
I can hop in. I mean, I came to this work at sort of an inflection point in a scientist's career, right? So I had done a PhD, and from there you kind of you can continue along the academic track and pursue research positions or teaching positions, or look outside the academic world. And I was looking outside the academic world, and the working in public policy ended up being one of a few options, and the one that I ended up falling down.
My career didn't really have a inflection point so much. So I think it just was a decision to do something different, and kind of a bit of a wild leap to apply to the fellowship. It might have been a sign that I was just looking to do something else. I had a great career before. I loved the company I was at. So it just, I wanted to do something new. And so then it wasn't some long drawn out process for me. It was actually just a somewhat quick application. But yeah, I don't know. Jason, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, I referenced that the law thing, going to law school was kind of a, just sort of serendipity that they happened to have that as a program. And then the fact that Department of Labor was the big agency hiring at the time I graduated, for whatever reason, they had a large number of hirings. But then deciding to go to Department of State was really because I missed some of the international part of it that I had done when I'd done international admissions. And I was fortunate enough at Department of Labor to do a little bit of work with the Department of State on getting back wages to workers that, had been exploited when they were in the U.S. but were now back in their home countries. And so, was working with Department of State and some of the people there to encourage me to try for the Foreign Service officer test, which I did, and I was fortunate enough to get in through that process. So coming to State was really an opportunity for me to kind of combine my international and government experiences, I guess.
Great. Yeah, thank you for sharing your amazing experiences and journeys to this point. Could you each talk a little bit about what you do now in your current jobs, and what like a weekly schedule might look like, and for Allison and Joseph, how that integrates what you learned in your Harvey Mudd careers in the STEM fields where you previously worked into your current work, and for Jason, how your international relations background plays into it as well.
I'll go. In the work that we do, the day-to-day kind of thing can vary quite a bit, but I would say it's not so different from a lot of career paths that Harvey Mudd graduates are thinking about, right? So you have a portion of your work, or at least a portion of my work, is dedicated to research, or to producing research reports or public policy analyses or ideas, marketing those ideas, both like directly to friends and colleagues at other organizations, people in policymakers or people in a position to inform how policymakers think, like Allison, marketing them more broadly through media and events that we host and all those kinds of things. So this for me, this work has been really exciting because you can kind of build skills and exercise muscles well beyond your specific technical expertise, which I like to think I maintain, and that allows you to kind of enjoy a broader range of work. It's not unlike having been at Harvey Mudd, where you would spend a lot of time on technical issues, but there was a real ethos and expectation that you were trying to understand how technical work affects society more broadly through humanities study or through the honor code or through whatever.
Yeah, I will echo Joe that so many of the skills of Mudd I use every day. And for me, so being a senior technologist in the Senate, I will say I do a lot less research. I don't there's too little time to be given for me to do a research project. I am going to be working with others and asking experts. But
you're a consumer of research.
I'm a consumer of research. Yeah. And I'm a requester of research, depending on who I'm talking to. And I have the knowledge of how to learn from Mudd that lets me ask the right questions. When people some of the most fun meetings are questioning whether claims of maybe some companies are true or things like that, and being able to ask those technical questions. But in terms of day-to-day life in Congress, it varies extremely wildly. There is a very big difference between when Congress is in session and not in session. When it's in session, you have to support, your boss will be in town, and you'll support meetings with business leaders or advocates or constituents. There's too many things for your bosses to know. So they're not gonna know the details of everything. So you will prepare them for important meetings and make sure they know what's going on. Committee hearings, what questions do they want to ask? There's been famous committee hearings where the tech policy questions have not been good in the past. If you all remember, like Facebook hearings where they ask how Facebook makes money, which the Zuckerberg responds, "Well, sir, we sell ads." So trying to help prevent questions like that. And really it varies. But lots of meetings, but consumption of really great research from organizations like where Joe works. But then also like talking to executive branch agencies like state, asking, I don't cover international relations, but when there's export control questions of technology, or which maybe that isn't actually state, but there's all sorts of things where we're talking to different government agencies. And so it varies very much from day to day.
Yeah, and for me right now, I'm a recruiter. So a lot of my time is spent in various career fairs or information sessions like this one, talking to individuals who are interested in joining either the Foreign Service or the Civil Service. And I spend a lot of time actually letting people know that we're more than just Foreign Service officers, because a lot of people think of Department of State and that's mostly what they think of. They don't realize that we have specialized positions for people with IT or engineering backgrounds, for example. So trying to promote those. But I would say that one of the best things in my experience about the Foreign Service experience is the fact that you do have to change jobs every 2 to 3 years. It can be a bit challenging at times, but the nice thing is you're always learning something new. So, this is the first time I've ever done recruiting since I was an admissions officer many years ago. And, I've had other experiences when I was in Tijuana, for example. I did a lot of environmental work. So I was talking to people about, how to save the vaquita marina, an endangered porpoise, and also talking about an endangered fish, and, meeting with scientists who were going to an observatory. So in that sense, I was very fortunate that I had a colleague who had previously been a AAAS fellow who later joined the Foreign Service, who had an engineering background. So I would encourage, people who are thinking about something, maybe, how you could apply science to policy. I think there are a lot of opportunities, throughout the federal government, but in the Foreign Service as well as other parts of the Department of State.
Yeah, thank you so much for touching on the current events that are happening. I know a lot of Mudd students are tuned into the hearings with tech companies and are also interested in climate change and how STEM relates to the coronavirus vaccine and how it might be distributed. So a lot of overlap between STEM fields and current events. Yeah, if would you like to talk a little bit more about how your education prepared you with dealing with current events and how your jobs might be related to those?
I can. I mean, so in the work that I do, we're focused on climate change policy, which is intimately linked to not just energy policy, right, and the kind of energy technologies we use on a day-to-day basis, or sort of exist in the background, like a power plant. It, it but all decisions in climate and energy are influenced by a variety of factors: technical issues, economic issues, engineering challenges, the science of climate change, as well as the sort of ethical and political considerations for how we make decisions across all of those inputs. And so, where technical fluency is extremely important, but also your ability to sort of, which I think I got from my education at Mudd, or at least was like kind of sealed during my education at Mudd, the ability to move in between technical disciplines, ability, as Allison says, to sort of learn quickly enough in a different area, as well as really think carefully, and I would argue humbly, about what the sort of the boundaries of technical information in the political environment, which are real, is one of the things that allows like me to be effective as a scientist and analyst and advocate.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine that current events drive tech policy all the time. I mean, just this hack that's going on that we're learning more about every day of the different government agencies. It causes tech policy staffers to have to spend lots of time learning what's going on. I am fortunate that I work with a team, tech team, and so I don't actually cover cybersecurity, and so I don't have to lead on that, which is great. But just like Joe, you said something that I'll touch on, which is making sure you're understanding when something is a technical problem versus when something is just a problem that exists in society, and it's not, tech didn't create it, but also maybe tech can't solve it on its own. And so blaming tech for the problem may not get at the root cause, but at the same time, tech could help, but you can't just assume it's going to fix everything. And so like this is where I just come back around to our liberal arts education and our ability to read about more than just my engineering education. And so many of the pieces of what I work on involve making sure other voices are being in the room. So the current events, not just me, but also the staffer who covers unemployment insurance because of everything that broke down with unemployment insurance during the pandemic. I don't know about labor policy. Go ahead, Joe.
I mean, I'm interested in your response to a question, if I can go crosswise of our moderators. But I think one of the things that really helps technically minded people or engineers or people who've been in those disciplines be particularly effective in this space is understanding that engineering in particular, but science as well, are human processes, right? Yeah. So the YouTube algorithm, which recommends the next video that you might want to watch, falls under a lot of political criticism. And technology and engineering folks understand that like humans built that system, right? Like an algorithm is not a sort of universal truth in the same way that like a physical constant would be. They are socially derived technologies. And when you understand technology from that framework, I think it actually really helps to not be averse, but also to understand how they can be changed, governed, modified, to be used responsibly or well or legally or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I have spent a lot of time thinking on is at Mudd. So it's because I was an engineer and because I focus much more on physical systems, and how do we make sure a spacecraft isn't going to break apart when we launch it into space? I got to use F equals ma, right? Like I got to use the laws of physics to prove that something was going to work. How do we do that with these socio-technical systems? What are the laws of physics to prove that it's safe? And what sort of testing should we be doing? Who should be deciding how we test it? And there's some big philosophical questions that I get to think about that we don't have good answers for right now. And we've completely derailed. So I'm going to turn to Jason and make sure you get to respond as well.
Thank you. Since I don't have a tech background, I can't really talk about things I learned that were technical related that I'm using now or how that's impacted me. But I would say that probably the one class that I found the most relevant to my current career during my entire time at Pomona was actually at Pitzer, a class I took there, because they had a practitioner. And so I don't know how many practitioners there are, who have experience in government who are teaching or doing seminars or something like that at the Claremont Colleges. But I would, certainly urge people to attend those type of events, because the things I heard from this individual who had been actually a translator at Yalta. So he basically every class would just sit around and tell us stories about what had happened at Yalta. But I mean, it was amazing to hear the stories, but it was also very useful in terms of giving you an idea that, how international negotiations function hasn't changed that much. So I still sometimes think back to things that he talked about now almost 30 years ago. So I would, I do think that having that kind of a chance to talk to learn from practitioners is really a great thing if you have the chance to do it.
Excellent, yes. And yeah, I think we're going to turn more towards the career-oriented questions that I know a lot of students are thinking about since they would like to get jobs in these fields. And we have a question from the Q&A, which is, what do you recommend to students to do to get jobs in policies, in public policy? Many internships might have barriers such as being unpaid or during the spring instead of the summer. And how would you guys recommend negotiating around those barriers?
I think those particular barriers, my advice would be that there are a lot of entry points into this kind of work, and student interns, in my opinion, should be paid. They're paid where I work, and if you can't find terms that are acceptable, then that's probably not a place that's governed itself ethically, and probably won't be a great place to work. I think Harvey Mudd students in particular will find that their expertise would be valuable, right? Comfort with digital media, comfort with computers, comfort with engineering principles. The exact way to fit that in to a lot of places that work in public policy might require a little bit of thought and might require some entrepreneurial activity, but I think there's plenty of routes into this space. I think it's also important to notice that there's a lot of different ways to work in public policy or governance, right? So I technically work in the private sector. I work at a nonprofit, but we were in an independent firm, and our work faces government officials, it faces policymakers, it faces the media and broader communities. There's also government work, right? Either within science agencies or within the sort of legislative branch, like where Allison works. And then there's like advocacy areas where we don't do no one here is doing a lot of work, but like sort of the business of politics, right, where data science is incredibly important, and activism is much more the intent than the kind of work that Allison or I do, or that Jason does.
I'll give a few concrete things just so people on the line know. There's more and more people working on specifically this pipeline for something called Civic Technology, which is related. We haven't quite talked about it, but it is the idea of bringing engineers, computer scientists, technologists, but really, like, I mean, anybody with a Mudd degree has the thinking skills to do this, into the pipeline to be building technology for the government. And so that is not so much policy as helping build good government tech, except that it relates, because policy of how you build that is so very important. And so there is a huge push in that field, so especially for early careers. So I would encourage people to look at those types of opportunities to get their foot in the door for government work. There is a fellowship program for undergrads and just graduates called Coding It Forward, which I think the Career Service knows about, but that I highly recommend people to look at. There's other later career fellowships, like Joe and I both did one that requires either some experience or a graduate degree. But there are a number of later career ones, but in terms of early career, there are more emerging opportunities. So I encourage people to just keep looking, because there's more and more every day.
Yeah, on the issue of internships, I would just encourage everyone to, to look for as many as you might be interested in, because we have several different internship programs, both paid and unpaid. But our unpaid, at least for the summer, there is a separate scholarship program that you can apply to if you're a Pell Grant recipient, for example. And they hand out, and then they provide about 3,000 scholarships a year. So even for an unpaid internship, there may be a significant amount of financial support that's still available. And then also for some of our unpaid internships, overseas anyway, we all, outside of Western Europe, we typically provide housing. So that's, a fairly significant expense that you wouldn't have to worry about in most places. And then I always bring up the fact that, if you're in Southern California, you have 2 overseas internships that you can drive to in Tijuana and Nogales, Sonora, Mexico. And when I was in Tijuana, we never had enough applicants for the positions that we had. Now, the Washington, D.C. internships, both paid and unpaid, they typically have more applicants than they can take. But for around the world, that isn't always the case. The other thing I would say is that, for us, one of the challenges is that we do want people to, when they have an internship, to be just like an employee, have the same kind of access, same sort of opportunities. So you have to get a security clearance, which takes about 9 months. So our application deadlines are typically 9-10 months in advance. So I get questions now like, well, can I do an internship this upcoming summer 2021? And unfortunately for us, it's too late. But other agencies may not be as strict. I don't know all the deadlines for like USAID or Department of Commerce, but if you're interested in something international, there's a lot of agencies that are out there. The other thing I would mention is that we do have a virtual internship program. It's only during the academic year, and it only is open in June or July, but it's the Virtual Student Federal Service. It's only up to 10 hours a week, and because you don't have a clearance, you can't work on as many interesting things. But I do have 4 of those interns right now myself, and they're helping me with things like doing presentations. And when I do information sessions, they help me put together some of the materials for that. So it's still something that you can do even in this kind of pandemic environment. And then the last thing I would say is if you are interested in international relations or just, international affairs, as it maybe applies to engineering in some way, I would encourage you to look at, learning a language. And we do have, Department of State does offer scholarships to study abroad and learn languages. We have the Critical Language Scholarship Program. And then there are programs that also just support regular study abroad. The Gilman program, which is the one that you can use for interning abroad, you can also use it for study abroad. So if you're thinking about international at all, I think languages and international experience are both critical. And there are, programs out there that can pay for that.
Excellent. Yes. Those are great answers. I know a lot of students appreciate, more information about these opportunities. And I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll move to the breakout rooms. And also, Leslie has posted information in the chat for students who might be interested about the OCS resources for summer internships as well. And so our last question today is, what do you wish you'd known as a student that about your job that you know now?
I can go. I think I had a lot more thought that there would be people with backgrounds like mine in these types of positions already. And that is on the Hill, not true. It's getting better, but there is a lot of opportunity. need. And so it like I would have no idea when I was at Mudd. I wasn't thinking about this as a career path, that it would be something that my skill set would have been useful for. And so there's a whole world of policy out there.
I think I would have liked to have known how important governance can be across all different types of technology. Like, you know, sometimes it's easy to talk about this conversation in terms of, you know, how is technology important for policy, but the relationship is reflexive, right? So if you want to start a company that's going to send people to Mars, there are a lot of policy questions involved with that, right? Or if you're going to create a new vaccine, there are a lot of policy questions in getting that tested, licensed, and distributed. So like for a lot of the exciting events we see in technology, policy ends up being a big part of what allows things to reach scale, or what keeps things from reaching scale as fast as they might. And so understanding that if you want your technical work generally to have impact, that public policy plays a role, ends up, is an insight I would have been cool to have, almost 20 years ago.
I would just say that I wish I had known about some of the fellowships that existed. I had no idea about some of the things the Department of State offered, and I know other agencies offer too. For example, we have a Foreign Affairs Information Technology Fellowship, which can be used to pay for either the last 2 years of undergraduate or 2 years of a graduate degree in an IT-related field. And the deadline for that is actually coming up on February 1st, but we don't typically get a lot of applicants from Southern California. I don't know if we've had many from Harvey Mudd. I know we have one person from Pomona who received this fellowship in the past. And what's nice about it is that you basically know what you're going to do for 7 years. You can, you get your degree and then you commit to work for us for 5 years. We have similar degree programs also for graduate school if you're thinking about international relations related career to become a foreign service officer. The deadlines were already back in October, but one of my goals as a recruiter now has been trying to promote that, and it's been, surprising to me how many schools, there seem to be certain schools that have learned about it and lots of students are applying, but then others that, not as much. So I've been trying to spread that word. And I did put in the chat, by the way, a little link that if you want to register for more information about Department of State careers, you can go there. And also our website, Careers.state.gov, has more information too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those resources. Yes, I think we're ready to move to the second half of our conversation today, where there are networking sessions and breakout rooms. So hopefully students will have an opportunity to have more face-to-face conversations with our panelists. But thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences and advice about your careers. And yeah, we'll see you in the breakout rooms.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for, oh, sorry.
So we're going to close this one and jump on the other one, right?
Yes. So before we do that, so we have included the networking session Zoom link in the chat, and everyone can click on that and transition to the Zoom meeting. But before that, just want to make an announcement. We have a STEM career fair on Friday, January 29th, 2021 from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. during Pacific Standard Time. All the information is on Handshake. And also, as you can see for Jose's background, Mudd Compass joined today is a great networking with HMC alumni, and alumni would love to meet with you and help support you. And so if you have time, we have a survey link in the chat box, including with all the information that Jason's included regarding how to apply, and also for the funding for summer internship. So just click on the link for the Zoom networking, and we will see you all there. So, thank you.